The small human exploration vessel Pathfinder drifted toward the massive structure floating in the blackness of space. Captain Jack Miller stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the view screen. The trading post looked like a giant metal snowflake, with long spokes extending from a central hub, each dotted with lights and colors humans had never seen before. "Are we recording everything?" Jack asked, his voice steady despite the excitement, bubbling in his chest. "Yes, Captain," replied Dave, the ship's science officer. "All sensors are at maximum. First contact protocols are ready." The Pathfinder had ventured farther than any human ship before. 6 months ago, they had discovered strange signals coming from this region of space. Earth's United Space Program had given them permission to investigate, but no one expected to find something this big, something this alien. "They're hailing us," said Anna from her communication station. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "I'm running it through the translation matrix now." A moment later, a voice filled the bridge. It sounded flat and artificial, the computer's best attempt to turn alien sounds into human speech. "Unknown vessel, identify yourselves and state your purpose. This is Outpost Trading Station Gamma 9. Jack nodded to Anna, who opened a channel. "This is Captain Jack Miller of the Earth exploration vessel Pathfinder. We come in peace and wish to establish contact." There was a pause before the reply came. "Earth vessel Pathfinder, you are cleared to approach docking bay 42. Follow the guidance signals. Prepare for customs inspection." Jack ordered the pilot to follow the flashing blue lights guiding them toward one of the smaller docking bays. As they approached, the size of the station became clear. It was larger than the biggest cities on Earth. "Look at that ship." Dave pointed at a massive vessel departing from another section of the station. It was easily 20 times the size of the Pathfinder and moved with surprising grace for something so large. "I count at least 7 different ship designs," said Sam, the security officer, "which means at least 7 different species." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. And it wasn't just one alien race, it was many. The Pathfinder docked with a gentle thud. Jack selected a team of 5 crew members to join him for first contact. Anna for communications, Dave for science, Sam for security, and 2 others. They gathered by the airlock, checking their equipment one last time. "Remember," Jack said to his team, "we represent all of humanity today. Let's make a good impression." The airlock cycled open to reveal a brightly lit corridor. Standing there was a creature that looked like a tall, thin humanoid with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms. It wore what appeared to be a uniform with strange symbols on the chest. "Welcome to Gamma 9, it said, the words coming from a small device on its neck. "I am Officer Trell of the Galactic Concord Customs Division. Please follow me." Jack and his team followed Trell through corridors filled with the strangest sights they had ever seen. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved about their business. Some looked almost human, while others were so different that Jack's mind struggled to make sense of what he was seeing. The air smelled of strange spices and mechanical oil. They arrived at a large room where several other aliens sat behind desks. Trell directed them to one operated by a creature with red scales and eyes that blinked sideways. "State your species, planet of origin, and purpose," said the scaled alien in a bored tone. "Human from Earth. We're explorers seeking peaceful contact with other intelligent life," Jack replied. The alien's eyes widened slightly. "New species contact? Interesting." It tapped on a screen. "Wait here." Minutes later, they were led to another room where a tall, imposing figure waited. This alien had gray skin that seemed to shimmer like metal and stood nearly 7 feet tall. "I am Commander Vrax, Station Administrator," it said. "Your arrival is unexpected. We have no record of your species in our database." Jack explained how humans had developed space travel and followed strange signals to find the trading post. Vrax listened with an expression Jack couldn't read. "Most fascinating," Vrax said when Jack finished. "You may explore public areas of the station while we process your registration. The Galactic Concord welcomes all spacefaring species. Eventually." There was something in the way Vrax emphasized "eventually" that made Jack uneasy. over the IE. Next 3 days, Jack and his crew learned more about the station and the Galactic Concord. It wasn't a government exactly, but a loose alliance of the oldest and most powerful species who controlled most trade routes and resources in this part of the galaxy. On the 4th day, Jack was summoned to meet with Vrax again. This time, the commander had a data tablet ready. "We have reviewed your species and technology level," Vrax said. "The Concord is prepared to establish initial trading relations with Earth." Jack looked at the offered terms and frowned. The Concord would trade advanced technology for Earth resources like water, iron, and certain carbon compounds. But the exchange rates were terrible. Earth would have to give up massive amounts of resources for the smallest pieces of alien tech. "These terms seem unfair," Jack said carefully. "Water might be common on Earth, but surely our unique cultural artifacts would have value too?" Vrax made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "Captain Miller, you must understand your position in the galactic community. You are newcomers with primitive technology. The Concord is being generous by trading with you at all." Jack felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression neutral. "Perhaps we could negotiate better terms? These are the standard rates for new species," Vrax said dismissively. "Take them or leave them. There are many young worlds eager for Concord technology." Jack asked for time to consult with his crew. Back on the Pathfinder, he called a meeting. "They're treating us like children," Anna said angrily. "Those rates would drain Earth's resources for minimal return." Dave nodded in agreement. "And did you notice how they reacted when I asked about their faster-than-light drive technology? They practically laughed at me." Sam, who had been quietly observing everything during their stay, spoke up. "I've been watching the other species here. The newer ones all seem to get the same treatment. The older races take what they want and give little in return." Jack stared out the viewport at the massive station. "They think we're just another primitive species they can push around," he said quietly. "They have no idea what humans are like when we're underestimated." He turned to his crew, a new determination in his eyes. "We'll accept their terms for now, but we'll gather all the information we can about their trade networks, their technology, their politics. Then we'll head back to Earth." "And then?" Anna asked. Jack smiled, but there was no humor in it. "And then we'll show the Galactic Concord that humans don't just take what they're given. We take what we want." As the Pathfinder prepared to depart the station 3 days later, Commander Vrax watched from the control room. "Another simple species added to our trade network," Vrax said to a colleague. "They'll provide good resources for minimal cost, like all the others." "They seem disappointed with the terms," the other alien noted. "They'll accept them. They have no choice," Vrax said confidently. "What else could they possibly do?" As the Pathfinder disappeared into the darkness of space, heading back toward Earth, none of the aliens could have predicted what was coming. Humans had been underestimated throughout their own history, and they had always proven their doubters wrong. The Galactic Concord was about to learn this lesson the hard way. The news of alien contact spread like wildfire across Earth. Within hours of the Pathfinder's return, every screen on the planet showed images of the strange trading post and its even stranger inhabitants. People gathered in homes, bars, and public squares to watch Captain Jack Miller's official report to the United Earth Council. "The aliens call themselves the Galactic Concord," Jack explained to the room of grim-faced world leaders. "They control most known trade routes and have technology far beyond ours, but they see us as primitive newcomers, hardly worth their time." He displayed the trading terms Commander Vrax had offered. Murmurs of anger filled the chamber as the council members reviewed the numbers. "These rates would strip Earth's resources for scraps of technology," said the council president. "It's highway robbery." "Exactly," Jack agreed. "But I believe we can turn this situation to our advantage. The Concord is overconfident and underestimates us. That's a mistake humans have been making other humans pay for throughout our history." The council debated through the night. By morning, they had formed the United Earth Trade Commission, UETC, a new organization tasked with managing humanity's response to the Galactic Concord. Admiral Tom Wilson, a veteran of Earth's space program with a reputation for creative problem-solving, was appointed to lead it. 6 weeks later, Admiral Wilson stood in the hangar of Earth's orbital shipyard, watching workers transform cargo vessels into a makeshift fleet. Engineers swarmed over the ships, installing new systems based on what the Pathfinder had observed at the trading post. "Will they be ready in time?" Wilson asked the chief engineer. "Just barely," the woman replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. "We're pushing the limits of what we can do with our current tech, but they'll fly and they'll carry cargo. That's all we need for now," Wilson said with a nod. Beside him stood Lisa Reynolds, a junior analyst who had caught Wilson's attention with her sharp mind. She had been studying the data the Pathfinder had collected about alien trade patterns. "Have you found anything useful?" Wilson asked her. Lisa nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. "I think so, sir. Look at these transaction records." She pulled up a display showing columns of numbers. The Concord charges different rates to different species. The newer the species is to space travel, the worse their rates. It's a pattern of systematic exploitation. Wilson smiled slowly. "Which means there are plenty of potential allies out there who might be interested in a better deal." 3 months after first contact, Earth's small fleet of 8 vessels approached the trading post. This time Admiral Wilson led the mission, with Captain Miller as his advisor and Lisa Reynolds heading the analysis team. The aliens were visibly surprised by humanity's quick return, and with ships full of tradable goods. "Your species moves with unexpected haste," Commander Vrack said when Wilson was brought to meet him. "We did not anticipate your return for at least another of your Earth years." "Humans don't like to waste time," Wilson replied evenly. "We've brought cargo to trade according to your terms." Suspicion flashed across Vrax's alien features. "You accepted our terms without further negotiation?" Wilson smiled. "For now. We're eager to begin our relationship with the Galactic Concord." Over the next month, the human ships made regular trades at the station. They exchanged water, iron, and carbon compounds for small pieces of alien technology. On the surface, they appeared to be accepting their place in the galactic hierarchy, but beneath this compliant exterior, they were gathering information. Lisa Reynolds established a small office on the trading post, officially to coordinate Earth's trading activities. In reality, she was mapping the entire network of relationships between species, learning who traded what with whom, and, most importantly, who was being treated unfairly by the Concord. "The Relari provide rare minerals but get terrible rates," she told Wilson during one of their secure briefings aboard the flagship. "The Tekken have amazing agricultural products but are practically being robbed, and at least 5 other species are in similar positions." Wilson nodded thoughtfully. "Have you made contact with any of them?" "Carefully, yes," Lisa said. "They're interested in what we might offer, but they're afraid of Concord reprisals. Fear is a powerful tool," Wilson mused. "The Concord has been using it to keep everyone in line, but fear only works until someone stands up to the bully." Meanwhile, Captain Miller had been making friends with various alien traders, buying them drinks at the station's many bars and listening to their stories. He learned about star systems the Concord considered worthless, about shortcuts through space that weren't on official maps, and about resources the dominant species didn't value. One evening, as Miller sat in a dimly lit corner of a trader's bar, a small furry alien with 6 eyes leaned close to him. "Your kind pretends to accept Concord rules," the alien whispered, "but you ask too many questions for a compliant species." Miller tensed, but the alien made a gesture that translated as friendly amusement. "The Concord grows fat and lazy," the alien continued. "They forget that new blood brings new ideas. There are many who would welcome alternatives." The alien slid a data chip across the table before quickly leaving. Later, when Miller examined it with Wilson and Reynolds, they discovered coordinates for a star system not far from established trade routes, one rich in resources, but ignored by the Concord because of some local stellar phenomena that interfered with their navigation systems. "This could be exactly what we need," Wilson said, studying the star charts. "A place to establish our own foothold, away from direct Concord oversight." 6 months after their initial return to the trading post, The humans made their move. Half their ships departed, supposedly returning to Earth with their acquired technology. Instead, they headed for the coordinates they'd been given. The system contained a habitable planet with no intelligent native life. More importantly, it had abundant resources and a position near several trade routes used by the species most exploited by the conquered. While maintaining their presence at the Concord trading post, Earth quietly began constructing their own trading station in this new system. Engineers worked around the clock, adapting Concord technology they'd acquired and combining it with human ingenuity. When Lisa discovered that the stellar interference that kept the Concord away could be navigated, using modifications to standard sensors, the humans had their advantage. They developed navigation aids for the species they hoped to trade with. The pieces are falling into place, Wilson told his team as they gathered on their half-built station. Now we need to send out invitations to our grand opening. Lisa had spent months building relationships with representatives of exploited species. Now she sent coded messages to her contacts. A new trading post was opening, one that offered fair rates and didn't care about your species' age or status. Back at Tew, the Concord station, Commander Vrax noticed a drop in trading activity from certain species. Investigating, he discovered rumors of a new trading post offering better terms. When he learned humans were behind it, his dismissive attitude turned to alarm. Summon the human representative immediately, he ordered his staff, but it was too late. The human presence at the Concord station had already been quietly reduced to a minimal diplomatic contingent. When Vrax's summons arrived, he found himself facing not a frightened newcomer, but a confident Admiral Wilson, who had returned specifically for this confrontation. "What is the meaning of this unauthorized trading post your species has established?" Vrax demanded. Wilson smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. "The Concord doesn't own space, Commander. We've simply created an alternative for those who want fair trade. This violates Concord protocols. You were given standard terms for a new species. And we've decided those terms don't work for us," Wilson replied calmly. "Humans take what they want, Commander, and what we want is a fair deal. For ourselves and for others who have been exploited too long." As Wilson walked away, leaving Vrax sputtering with rage, he knew the real challenge was just beginning. The Concord wouldn't take this challenge to their authority lightly. But for the first time since entering the galactic community, humanity had seized the initiative. They weren't playing by the Concord's rules anymore. They were writing their own. The human trading post grew quickly. They named it Freedom Station, and within 3 months it had become a bustling hub of activity. Built into the side of a mineral-rich asteroid, the station wasn't as large or fancy as the Concord's massive outposts, but it had something more valuable: fair deals. Admiral Wilson stood at the observation deck, watching ships of various designs dock and depart. The station's traffic had tripled in the past month alone. "Sir, the Tekken delegation has arrived," Lisa Reynolds said as she joined him. In the month since they'd established the station, she had been promoted to Chief Diplomatic Officer. "They're bringing twice the cargo they promised." Wilson nodded with satisfaction. "And the Rilari? Their 4th transport this week just cleared customs. They're asking if we can handle more volume." "Tell them yes," Wilson said. "The new docking arms will be operational by next week." Lisa hesitated before speaking again. "We're also receiving messages from species we haven't contacted. Word is spreading faster than we anticipated." Wilson turned to look at her. "Good. News travels fast, especially when it involves profit. Have our engineers finished the modifications to the tech and navigation systems?" "Yes. They can now navigate the stellar interference without our help. They're extremely grateful." Unlike the Concord, which hoarded technology to maintain control, the humans freely shared innovations that helped their trading partners. It was a radical approach in a galaxy where information was typically treated as a precious commodity. Across the room, Captain Miller was discussing cargo schedules with a tall, insect-like alien. The creature's translator emitted a series of clicks that sounded like laughter. "Your species continues to surprise us," the alien said. "The Concord said humans were primitive newcomers, but you have adapted faster than any species in recent memory." Miller smiled. We have a long history of adapting to survive, and we don't like being pushed around. The alien made another clicking sound. The Conquered has noticed. They are not pleased. We expected that, Miller replied calmly. Later that day, Wilson, Miller, and Reynolds gathered in the station's secure conference room. The latest intelligence reports from their contacts at the Conquered stations weren't good. They're organizing a response, Miller said, reviewing the data. The Conquered High Council has labeled us disruptive elements and trade pirates. Pirates? Lisa said with a short laugh. Because we offer fair prices? Because we're threatening their control, Wilson corrected. The Concord maintains power by keeping younger species dependent. We're breaking that system. The door chimed and a junior officer entered. Admiral, we've detected a Concord diplomatic vessel requesting permission to dock. They say they carry representatives of the High Council. Wilson exchanged looks with his colleagues. This was inevitable. Grant them permission and prepare the main conference room. Let's hear what they have to say. 2 hours later, Wilson sat across from 3 Concord representatives. The lead negotiator was a tall, elegant alien with silver skin and eyes that seemed to change color as it spoke. I am High Counselor Drek, it began. The Concord is concerned about your unauthorized trading activities. There's nothing unauthorized about free trade, Wilson replied evenly. Drek's eyes flashed red. You misunderstand your position in the galactic community. New species must be properly integrated through established channels. Your actions are causing disruption to carefully balanced trade networks established over thousands of years. Those carefully balanced networks seem heavily tilted in favor of certain species, Lisa pointed out. That is not your concern, another representative snapped. The Concord maintains order across hundreds of star systems. Without our management, chaos would reign. Wilson leaned forward. We have a proposal. The Concord can recognize freedom, station as a legitimate trading hub, and in return will coordinate our activities with your broader networks. Impossible, Drek said immediately. However, we are prepared to offer humanity improved trading terms. The alien slid a data pad across the table. These rates are typically reserved for species with at least a century of interstellar presence, Wilson glanced at the figures and passed the pad to Lisa. She studied it briefly before setting it down. These are better, she acknowledged, but still not equal to what established Concord members receive. Equality must be earned, the third representative said. Accept these terms, close this station, and in time humanity will advance. And if we refuse? Miller asked. Drek's voice grew cold. Then the Conquered will be forced to take steps to protect the established order. Your species has shown promise. It would be unfortunate if that promise were curtailed. After the Concord representatives left, Wilson called an emergency meeting with all department heads. They're threatening us, he stated bluntly. We need to prepare for possible hostile action. Our defenses are minimal, the security chief said. We've focused on trade, not military capacity. Then we need to accelerate our plans, Wilson replied. He turned to the chief engineer. How soon can we implement the modifications we discussed? The shield adaptations? With round-the-clock work, maybe 2 weeks? But the weapon systems would take longer, and we don't have the power generators to support them yet. Lisa spoke up. What about our trading partners? Some of them have decent defensive capabilities. I won't put other species at risk for our decisions, Wilson said firmly. Miller, who had been quiet, finally spoke. We don't need to. Remember what the Concord doesn't know about us yet. Everyone turned to look at him. They've seen our trading ships, which we deliberately kept simple. They haven't seen what we've been working on back home. Miller pulled up a secure channel on his tablet. It's time to call in the reserve fleet. The next day, as Wilson was reviewing evacuation plans in case of Conquered aggression, an alert sounded. A massive ship had dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the station. Is it Conquered? Wilson asked tensely as he hurried to the command center. No, sir, the sensor operator replied, sounding confused. It's one of ours. The Defender. On the main screen, A ship unlike any the station staff had seen before appeared. It was clearly of human design, but incorporated elements of various alien technologies they'd studied. Most importantly, it was armed with weapons the humans had reverse-engineered from tech they'd traded for. Miller stepped forward, grinning. Right on schedule, and there should be 5 more just like her on the way. You knew about this? Wilson asked. I helped design them, Miller replied. While we were building this station, Earth wasn't sitting idle. We've been preparing for this moment from day one. 3 days later, when Counselor Drek returned with what he thought would be an overwhelming show of force, 3 Concord enforcement vessels, he found not a vulnerable trading post, but a well-defended station with 6 human warships in protective formation around it. Admiral Wilson, Drek said when communications were established, unable to hide his shock. Your species continues to surprise. That's what humans do, Wilson replied calmly. Now I believe we were discussing trade terms. The conquered ships held position, clearly reassessing the situation. None of them had expected the humans to have military vessels of that caliber so quickly. Perhaps, Drek said carefully, we should reopen negotiations on more equitable grounds. Wilson smiled. I thought you might say that, but this time we're not just negotiating for humanity. We're representing all the species you've been exploiting. The game has changed, Counselor. Behind him, the staff of Freedom Station watched with pride. In less than a year since first contact, humans had gone from newcomers to game-changers in the galactic community. They hadn't just taken a seat at the table, they'd flipped the table entirely, and the Conquered was beginning to realize that underestimating humans had been their biggest mistake. The peace didn't last long. Despite the show of force by the human ships, the Conquered High Council wasn't ready to give up control. 2 weeks after Counselor Drek's visit to Freedom Station, the humans intercepted disturbing communications. They're calling it a containment action, Lisa Reynolds said, as she briefed Admiral Wilson and the station's command staff. Now promoted to Commodore, she had been put in charge of intelligence operations. They plan to blockade our trade routes and isolate us from our partners. Wilson studied the star map where red lines marked the planned Conquered blockade points. They're casting a wide net. 23 ships at key junction points, Commodore Reynolds confirmed. Too many for us to challenge directly with our current fleet. Captain Miller, who had been studying the Concord's military tactics, pointed to several locations on the map. They're using standard Concord formations. They expect us to either back down or try to break through with brute force. And if we do neither? Wilson asked. Miller smiled. Then we show them why humans have always been good at asymmetric warfare. 3 days later, the Conquered launched their containment action. Their warships took position at key trade route intersections, cutting off access to Freedom Station. The High Council sent a message to all trading species. Any vessels attempting to trade with the humans would be intercepted and impounded. The Conquered expected the humans to protest, to threaten, perhaps even to attempt a doomed breakout. What they didn't expect was silence. For 5 days, Freedom Station went dark. No communications, no ship movements, nothing. The Conquered commanders grew nervous. Had the humans given up? Were they planning something? The uncertainty was worse than open opposition. On the 6th day, the Conquered got their answer. At blockade, point 7, a Conquered patrol detected a small ship moving at unusual speed. When they ordered it to stop for inspection, the ship seemed to comply, then suddenly accelerated, racing past the Concord vessels before they could react. Similar reports came in from other blockade points. Small, fast human ships were slipping through their net. Some used the stellar interference that had always troubled Conquered navigation systems. Others took routes the Conquered considered too dangerous to patrol. They're using the weaknesses in our defensive grid, a Conquered commander reported to High Counselor Drek. Exploiting gaps we didn't think anyone could navigate. Drek's color shifted to a dark purple, a sign of anger. Tighten the blockade. Add more ships. We don't have enough ships to cover all the gaps they're finding, the commander replied. And now some of our supposed allies are helping them. That was the most troubling development. Several smaller species, seeing the humans successfully challenge Concord authority, had begun providing intelligence and even direct assistance. Tekon scout ships guided human traders through dangerous regions. Rilari merchants, mistakenly, delivered supplies to Concord blockade ships that contained human communication devices, allowing the humans to monitor Concord movements. The containment action that was meant to isolate humanity was instead revealing how many species were eager to see the Concord's control weakened. Aboard the human warship Defender, now serving as the mobile command center for their operations, Commodore Reynolds directed the resistance. Under her command, human ships executed hit-and-run tactics, appearing where least expected and disappearing before the Concorde could respond. The Concorde's main fleet is moving to reinforce Blockade Point 4, a communications officer reported. Reynolds studied the tactical display. Good. They're reacting exactly as expected. Captain Miller's analysis of their doctrine was spot on. The human strategy wasn't to break the blockade, but to stretch it thin, forcing the Concorde to spread their ships across too many points to be effective. Every time the Concorde reinforced one area, the humans would exploit another. Message from Admiral Wilson, ma'am, the officer said. Phase 2 is ready to begin. Reynolds nodded. Send the signal to all ships. Operation Trojan Horse begins now. Across the sector, human vessels that had been playing cat and mouse with the Concorde suddenly changed tactics. Now they allowed themselves to be cornered, forcing the Concorde to commit resources to capture them. When the Concorde finally caught a human trading vessel near a distant outpost, they were triumphant. Boarding parties secured the ship and took the crew into custody. The Concorde commander personally led the inspection of the cargo hold. These humans thought they could evade us, he told his officers as they forced open the main cargo bay doors. Now we'll see what they've been smuggling past our... He stopped mid-sentence. The cargo bay was empty except for a single container in the center. As the boarding party approached, the container opened automatically, revealing not contraband, but a communication device that activated instantly. Admiral Wilson's voice filled the cargo bay. Attention, Concord vessel. By now you've noticed that this ship's propulsion system has been modified. What you don't know is that we've linked it to this message. When this recording ends, the modifications will activate. The Concord commander raced for the exit, barking orders to return to their ship. But it was too late. The captured human vessel's engines began to emit a strange frequency. Not an explosion as the Concorde feared, but something more subtle. The signal spread to the Concorde ship's systems, causing displays to flicker and controls to freeze. Similar scenes played out across the blockade as other captured human ships activated their hidden technology. The humans had turned their own captured vessels into delivery systems for a virus that spread through the Concorde communication network. Within hours, half the Concorde blockade fleet was crippled, not destroyed, but unable to maintain formation or communicate properly. Their advanced systems, which they had always believed superior to human technology, had been turned against them. On the Concorde command ship, High Counselor Drek received increasingly desperate reports from his fleet. "This is impossible," he snarled. "How could primitives develop a countermeasure to our system so quickly?" The answer came when Admiral Wilson opened a direct channel to the Concorde command ship. "Your systems aren't as secure as you thought, Counselor," Wilson said, his image appearing on the Concorde bridge. "While your diplomats were looking down their noses at us, our engineers were studying every piece of technology we traded for. You gave us the keys to your own systems." "This is an act of war," Drek threatened. "No," Wilson replied calmly. "It's a demonstration. We could have destroyed your ships, but we chose not to. Unlike the Concorde, humans don't believe in unnecessary violence." As Wilson spoke, human warships appeared near each disabled Concorde vessel, offering assistance to the stranded crews. It was the final humiliation for the Concorde, being rescued by the very species they had tried to contain. "The blockade is over," Wilson continued. "You can keep pretending you have the power to control us, or you can accept reality. The game has changed." Before Drek could respond, another communication channel opened. One by one, representatives of the species that had allied with humanity appeared, each declaring that they would no longer accept Concord authority over their trade. "This isn't just about humanity anymore," Wilson said, as the declarations continued. "It's about freedom for all species to trade fairly. You can be part of that future or you can be left behind." As the human ships began towing disabled Concord vessels back to safety, the message was clear. Humanity had not just broken the blockade, they had broken the Concord's image of invincibility. Word spread quickly across the galaxy. The species that had dominated interstellar trade for centuries had been outmaneuvered by newcomers, and they had done it without destroying a single conquered ship. In the privacy of his quarters, Drek received a secure message from the full High Council. The words were few but devastating. "Negotiate terms. The old ways are finished." The containment action that was meant to put humanity in its place had instead changed the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The humans had taken what they wanted, not through destruction, but through outsmarting their opponents at every turn. 1 year after the failed Concord blockade, the galactic landscape had changed beyond recognition. Freedom Station had grown to 3 times its original size, with new modules extending from the central hub like the petals of a flower. Ships, of all designs and origins, moved in a constant stream through its docking bays. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was political. The Free Trade Alliance, as it had come to be called, now included 27 species who had broken from Concord control. Each maintained their own sovereignty while agreeing to fair trade practices with all members. Captain Jack Miller, now serving as Earth's chief diplomat, stood in the newly completed Grand Assembly chamber. Representatives from all Alliance members would gather here in a few hours for the first official meeting. But for now, Miller had a more immediate concern. A Concord delegation was arriving, led by none other than Commander Vrax, the same official who had dismissed humanity as primitive. Newcomers during their first contact. "Nervous?" asked Admiral Wilson, joining Miller at the viewing window. "A little," Miller admitted. "It's been a long journey from that first meeting at the trading post. And yet here we are," Wilson said with a smile, "preparing to negotiate as equals with the people who once thought they could exploit us." The chamber doors slid open and Commodore Reynolds entered. Her intelligence network had expanded across the galaxy, making her one of the most well-informed individuals in known space. "The Concord ships have docked," she reported. Vrax looks like he swallowed something sour. "I'm not surprised," Wilson replied. "This can't be easy for him." "Should we make it easier?" Miller asked. Wilson considered this. "No. We won't gloat or be disrespectful, but we won't pretend this isn't a major shift in power. The Concord needs to understand that the old ways are truly over." When Commander Vrax and his delegation entered the chamber, Miller was struck by how different the alien looked. The arrogance that had once radiated from him was gone, replaced by a tense wariness. "Welcome to Freedom Station," Miller said, stepping forward to greet them. "We appreciate your willingness to meet here." Vrax's translator produced a sound that might have been a sigh. "The High Council sends its regards. We are authorized to discuss new terms for interspecies trade and cooperation." "Excellent," Wilson said. "Please join us in the conference room. We have prepared refreshments suitable for your species." As they walked through the station corridors, Vrax observed the diverse beings working together, humans alongside Tekken, Relari, and many others. Some were species even the Concord had never managed to establish relations with. "Your station seems prosperous," Vrax noted, the reluctant admission clearly difficult for him. "Trade thrives when it's fair," Miller replied simply. In the conference room, maps of trade routes and resource distributions filled the displays. The humans had prepared a comprehensive proposal for a new relationship with the Concord, not as subordinates, but as equal partners in a larger network. As Miller began the presentation, he noticed Vrax staring at one particular display showing the growth of trade volume across the Alliance. "Is something wrong, Commander?" Miller asked. "These figures," Vrax said, pointing to the chart. They show total trade has increased by 340% across the affected regions. This cannot be accurate. It is, Commodore Reynolds confirmed. When species trade freely without artificial barriers, everyone prospers. But the Concord regulations were designed to maintain stability, Vrax protested. Without our control, there should be chaos, not growth. Wilson leaned forward. That was the fundamental flaw in your thinking. You saw control as necessary for prosperity. We proved otherwise. For hours, they discussed the details of the new arrangement. The Concord would retain its historical role in many regions, but would no longer dictate terms to alliance members. Open trade routes would be established, with standardized rates accessible to all species regardless of their technological development. Your proposals are not what the Council expected, Vrax admitted as the meeting neared its end. What did they expect? Miller asked, genuinely curious. Demands for reparations, punitive measures against conquered interests, perhaps even territorial concessions. Vrax's skin shimmered, the equivalent of a shrug. You've won, after all. This isn't about winning, Wilson said firmly. It's about creating a system that works for everyone, including the conquered. Later, after the conquered delegation had returned to their ship to consult with the High Council, Miller, Wilson, and Reynolds stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. Do you think they'll accept? Reynolds asked. They don't have much choice, Wilson replied. Their influence is waning. Even species that haven't joined the alliance are demanding better terms. It's strange, Miller said thoughtfully. When we first encountered the Conquered, I was angry at how they treated us. I wanted to show them they were wrong about humans. But now, Wilson prompted. Now I almost feel sorry for them. They've been doing things the same way for so long they couldn't imagine any other possibility. Reynolds nodded. That's the real difference, isn't it? Humans have always had to adapt to survive. Our history is full of changes, revolutions, new systems replacing old ones. The Concord has been stable for so long, they forgot how to change. Small alien approached them, one of the station's maintenance staff. Its species had been among the first to join the alliance after being particularly mistreated by the Concord. Forgive the interruption, it said in a musical voice. But I wish to express gratitude before returning to my homeworld. You're leaving us? Miller asked, recognizing the alien who had been helpful during the station's construction. Only temporarily. I am to represent my people at the next alliance meeting. The alien's eyes blinked in a pattern that indicated pride. I never imagined such an honor would come to one of my station. You've earned it, Wilson assured him. After the alien departed, Reynolds remarked, that's happening across the alliance. Species that were treated as resources by the conquered are discovering their own potential. And that, Miller said, is our greatest achievement. Not defeating the conquered, but showing everyone what's possible when you're treated with respect. The next day, the Concord delegation returned with their answer. The High Council had accepted the humans' proposal with only minor amendments. As Vrax applied his official seal to the agreement, he asked a question that had clearly been bothering him. There is one thing I still do not understand, he said to Miller. How did your species advance so quickly? We have seen other newcomers to the galactic community, but none have accomplished in a year what took others centuries. Miller considered his answer carefully. It wasn't superior technology or strength, he said finally. It was something simpler. Throughout our history, humans have rarely accepted being told no. When someone says we can't have something, we become determined to prove them wrong. So the saying is true, Vrax mused. Humans take what they want. Not exactly, Miller corrected. We take what we need. Fair treatment, respect, the chance to determine our own destiny, and we're willing to help others do the same. As the formal signing ceremony concluded, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Grand Assembly Chamber. What had begun as a simple trading dispute had evolved into a fundamental shift in how species interacted with one another. In a quiet corner of the celebration that followed, A small alien observer noted in his record, "The humans succeeded where others failed, not because they brought new weapons or technologies to the stars, but because they brought new ideas. They take what they want, not through conquest, but by changing the rules of the game entirely. And in doing so, they have changed us all." The story of humanity's rise from dismissed newcomers to galactic influencers would be told across countless worlds for generations to come, not as a tale of conquest, but as proof that even the oldest orders can be peacefully transformed when enough beings decide to stand together. And it had all begun with a simple refusal to accept unfair terms.